Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Review. It is Youth Football Playoff Week. First round of the playoffs starting on Saturday on all of our fine turf facilities around Anne Arundel County. And the high schools, Bill, the high school teams, the last couple of years, it's been pretty defined going into the last couple of weeks of the season for the most part. However, there's quite a logjam developing right now. There are 4 teams with 3 losses. Chopticon lost last week to Patuxent, so it's kind of opened the door again for those teams to now maybe sneak into that last spot. North Point's looking like it's going to be in with not much of a problem, but Chopticon's loss opens the door points-wise because the Anne Arundel County teams play all 4As here the rest of the way, and that's a good thing for them. But what has happened is a lot of teams in Anne Arundel County overall. North County beating Glen Burnie this week. Glen Burnie's got wins, though. Meade's got 5 wins. Severna Park's got 5 wins. So there's an inordinate amount of bonus points, probably the most bonus points there's ever been available in a football season in Anne Arundel County, and that may benefit one of those teams to sneak into that last spot.
Well, I think it speaks well of Anne Arundel County football, first and foremost, that we are starting to raise the level and there's more parity. It used to be that we had a very top-heavy league, and then there was a couple middling teams, and then we had the bottom dwellers. But we're starting to see Glen Burnie, Severna Park, North County. I mean, we can go on and on. You know, there is a very large contingent, as you mentioned, in that second tier, which speaks well for the overall competitiveness of Anne Arundel County football. It's interesting, Broadneck coach Rob Harris was saying after their loss that there's one game in the county that could potentially save Broadneck's opportunity to be in the playoffs. And I think that's the case with a lot of the teams. Severna Park probably has a few things that need to go their way to maybe jump into that picture. The only 2 teams that are really safe, Old Mill and Annapolis.
I mean, Severna Park and Broadneck played this week in that annual clash. The loser's probably out. But again, it's a big game.
And the winner will need help, though.
The winner will need help, but you got 8 points for beating a 4A, plus 5 wins minimum from that team already. So that's a 13-point day for you coming up this week.
Right.
So it's an incredible opportunity for the winner in that game. Severna Park, probably outside of Old Mill, as hot as anybody right now, as the Falcons get 80 yards from Joseph Jennings as they beat Meade 37-26. Mustangs scored 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to get that close. Otherwise, Severna Park was rolling in this game, and as we've documented all year long, Bill, they don't have the most enticing situation there right now because the school's being rebuilt. But what a job they have done. For them to be 5-3 right now and playing as well as they are really represents a great effort by the kids that they're putting in.
Well, I think that Severna Park is probably the one program that has taken the biggest step forward this year. And you know, Meade had been on a roll, won something of 5 in a row, and then suddenly has stumbled, losing the Mears Trophy game to Arundel, now falling to Severna Park. And Severna Park is really kind of over, you know, they probably have leapfrogged Meade, you know, Chesapeake falling back down. So Severna Park has suddenly put themselves a little higher on the tier, and they're sitting there right behind Broadneck, Old Mill, Annapolis, and you know, probably on par with Arundel as to being in that next tier. This is a huge game. If Severna Park can really make a statement by beating Broadneck this week.
Cyrus Gay, 30 carries, 262 and a score as Old Mill beat Chesapeake by a score of 48-7. Or 34-10 rather. It's the 26th straight regular season win for the Patriots. Just another building block in the regular season. They don't lose.
No.
They don't lose in the regular season.
They have become the dominant program in Anne Arundel County. And for a while, it was Arundel. Prior to that, Broadneck had a little bit of a run. And Old Mill is now the dominant program in Anne Arundel County. And they've proven that now over the course of 5-6 years.
Brooks Watson with 2 touchdowns, won in overtime to lead South River to a rivalry win over Southern by a score of 13-10. Arundel beats Northeast, and we talked about it a little bit last week, Bill, but it's almost been like a difference in philosophy here for Chuck Markowitz. All of a sudden, Darius Hunter, 201 and 5 scores. Ground Chuck over in Odenton.
I think, and it doesn't speak so much about Ryan Sedgwick, the quarterback, because he's still putting up good numbers. I think it has more to do with giving the defense a break. And that's been one issue for Arundel over the years. They score quickly. Sometimes when they play that high, potent offense that they do, sometimes you go 3 and out because you have a couple incomplete passes, and you're putting your defense under duress. And I think running the ball gives your defense a chance to go on the sideline, take a rest, and regroup.
Evan Falkman, 2 scores on the ground, 1 through the air. Spalding beats McDonough 31-16. All Spalding keeps doing, Bill, is winning. That's all they keep doing is winning right now. And obviously McDonough loses their quarterback during the course of this game, too. Makes a little bit of a difference in the contest. And when the door opened, Spalding slammed it shut. And this is just a huge, huge win for the program.
And it's a huge win for Anne Arundel County because it speaks volumes about the football being played in Anne Arundel County, both public and private. And I have to applaud Chuck Markowitz. He posted on Facebook. It's funny. Chuck is now a Facebook poster.
Oh, yeah.
I
follow him.
He was not too long ago. He knew nothing what Facebook was, but now he's prolific. And he posted the story from the Baltimore Sun about Spalding beating McDonough, and he wrote a comment that said, this is huge for Anne Arundel County, and it is. To have Archbishop Spalding as the #1 team in the entire Baltimore metro area, and McDonough had been #1, so this was a real statement game. And we are looking at a Mount St. Joseph Spalding showdown at the end of the year. That's at Spalding. Might have to get the Gridiron Review cameras out there for a little highlight, so that's going to be a big game.
Great game between those two teams coming up, and a lot of Anne Arundel County flavor involved
on both sides,
in that game. St. Mary's with a big win over John Carroll at 41-20. Donald Day, another big performance, 228 and 4 touchdowns for the Saints.
And the St. Mary's is improving. They struggled early, and now they've come up with some really impressive wins. And you just mentioned it, running the ball. I think St. Mary's is a team that was looking for their identity. There's a couple games earlier in the year where they threw it around. Wasn't quite sure if this Day kid can continue to run the ball that way. It bodes well going forward. But a couple nice wins for St. Mary's here in recent weeks.
Severn gets a win over Maryland Christian, 47-19. Ben Bedard threw for 185 and 3 scores in that contest. So a nice bounce back for the Admirals in that contest. And our man, Sam I Am, Green Eggs and Ham. Sam Kimukami,
another
getting
big
the job done, 56-yard run. And then, more importantly, it was really windy on Saturday, so you're not kicking a whole lot out there. AACS went for 2. Isaiah Williams hit Jared Heckard for the 2-point conversion, and they beat Mount Carmel by a score of 8-6. And now Annapolis Area Christian School will get a chance to defend their C-Conference title either against Mount Carmel or St. John's Catholic Prep coming up November 12th in a game that will be played at Spalding. And what a run here by the Eagles, now 7-2 on the year.
Yep, 7 wins in a row, and Sam's only a sophomore, so you got to figure he might be a college scholarship kid down the road. But all credit to the Eagles. I tell you one thing though, Pete, you win 2 C-Conference championships in a row, and the MIAA is calling you up and saying, we might want you to move up to the B Conference, because that's what happened to Spalding years ago and every other school in all sports. If you start to dominate at one level, they ask you to push up. Actually, it happened in Annapolis Area Christian School's lacrosse team.
Right.
They dominated the C Conference for a number of years, and finally were told, you got to go up. You got to go up to B, and it'll be interesting to see if that's a move that AACS makes here moving forward.
And, of course, they'd have natural rivals in Severn and St. Mary's.
Yes, they would.
When they get there in that division. Coming up, we'll take a look at the colleges. Bill and I were in Annapolis for yet another improbable victory by the Navy Midshipmen. Not that they won, but in the style that they won this past week against another good Memphis team. And the Maryland Terrapins with a big signature win in the DJ Durkin era as they knock off Michigan State. We'll talk colleges when we come back on the Gridiron Review. It was a blackout on Saturday night in College Park, and Maryland got the job done against Michigan State. Go Lorenzo, the freshman. Go Lorenzo. Harrison out of DeMatha runs for over 100 yards. Big Ten freshman of the week. Bill, signature win for DJ Durkin's team, who now knocking on the door of bowl eligibility with a 50-50 game coming up this week on the road against Indiana.
Well, you were right. Michigan State is not the Michigan State of old. They've now lost 5 in a row, kind of reeling under Mark D'Antonio, but it's Michigan State. And if you're Maryland, that's a huge win. And you're right, one win closer to bowl eligibility. If they can beat Indiana on the road, they may need to, Pete, because it's going to be Michigan and Ohio State in between Rutgers, which is a game that Maryland could win.
You just don't know how healthy you're going to be after playing Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back. That's the key thing there for the Terrapins going into that final game against Rutgers. So you try and take care of business this week, and the running attack continues to flourish. Perry Hill's good enough, in the air game, and obviously with all that wind the other night, you're going to keep the ball on the ground. Michigan State, their best defender, Riley Bullock, gets ejected from the game early in the contest, and Maryland takes advantage, running it down their throat on Saturday night. Meanwhile, in Annapolis, the Will Worth story continues.
What a story it is.
You know, I mean, you've written about it, obviously, this week in the Capitol, and, you know, every week he just gets better, does something more, 201 yards on the ground, threw a couple touchdown passes, and I thought your column you wrote about the coaching at the Naval Academy was spot on, because I think at some point, you know, these guys deserve some credit. And I think the fact that Navy is ranked already for a second consecutive season, finally, after 12 years, 12 of the last 13 years in a bowl game, I think people nationally are finally taking note of how good the Navy program is.
We're getting some respect. And, you know, you're talking about a guy that was the third-string quarterback. For the bulk of his career, he was the third-string quarterback.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he's starting. And look, he's ready to play. He's good. And it just shows the coaching that's going on, that they have backups who can step in to more prominent roles and do a good job. And that speaks to coaching. Guys are prepared. They've been trained well. And it really is remarkable. And it's because they have such a veteran coaching staff. I mean, you're talking 8 coaches have been at Navy 9 years or longer. That is amazing consistency you do not see anywhere else in the country. Starts at the top with head coach Ken Niumatalolo, but you know, Navy is really on a roll, and as you know, they've taken control of the West Division. Houston, with an absolutely stunning loss to SMU, is probably out of the picture now. Navy has the tiebreaker over what you would consider the next best team in the West, Memphis. Now, Tulsa obviously has been getting better.
Tulsa's not going to be an easy game. They're playing good football right now.
Well, apparently SMU won't be an easy game either if they just beat Houston very comfortably. A shocking game, really. That had been one of the most shocking results of the entire weekend in college football. But and Navy heads down to South Florida, another very tough opponent in the American Athletic Conference.
South Florida's got cyborgs, man. When they come to the line of scrimmage, their linemen, both sides of the ball, are absolute beasts. And they run. I mean, they are athletic as anybody the mids will see. Quentin Flowers, the quarterback, though, got hurt last week in the late going against Temple. Had a bit of a hamstring problem. So watching his health this week is going to be critical. Their running back, Marlon Mack, is an NFL player.
Absolutely.
So you're going to have to stop him coming up on Friday night. But again, mids at least now in control of their own outcome here.
That's right.
In the American Athletic Conference. And ironically, through 6 games, courtesy of our Inside the Numbers man, Joe Miller, on our broadcast, through 6 games this year, mids are like 250 yards of total offense ahead of last year's total.
Really? That's a very good Inside the Numbers stat by Joe Miller.
You follow him at JOMILMIL. He'll take you to all the numbers. When we come back, we'll talk pros, a losing proposition for both the Ravens and the Redskins this past week. We'll do that in a moment on the Gridiron Review. Well, the pros this week, the Joes didn't play well. Joe Flacco and anybody in a Redskins uniform in that last drive. So it adds up to a 24-16 Jets win. And how ironic, Bill. The Jets go to Geno Smith looking for a spark. He doesn't do anything, gets hurt with a knee. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in, who's been the most maligned quarterback in the NFL this year. He goes 9-14, $120 and a score, and the Jets beat the Ravens 24-16. I know it's not from lack of effort by the Ravens, but, man, there just seems to – again, the last drive the other day just didn't seem to be a huge sense of urgency from Baltimore with the chips down against the Jets, who have been woeful coming into this game.
Well, I think first and foremost, you're talking about a lack of talent with the Baltimore Ravens.
I think it's clearly a roster problem.
Yes.
I don't think it's a coaching problem. I think it's a roster problem.
I agree. They just don't have good enough players. And some of the players that have been mainstays are not as good as they used to be, Joe Flacco being one of them. Something's not right with Joe. He's tiring as games go along. He doesn't look all that sure of himself. You know, they talked about this one issue he has of not planting his back foot, and he's doing it again, which shows happy feet, trying to get rid of the ball, not putting the type of velocity on it that he should. Through 2 absolutely critical interceptions, were just killed the Ravens. And the New York Jets are one of the worst teams in the National Football League. So where does that make the Baltimore Ravens now that they lost to the Jets? With that has 2 quarterbacks that they don't even want. They don't want Geno Smith or Ryan Fitzpatrick.
And what did I tell you when Marty Morningweg took over as the offensive coordinator?
He's not the answer.
He wasn't going to run the ball either. I think they had 12 total carries in the game.
6 yards.
Yeah.
6 rushing yards. You almost have to try to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard to do, to run for only 6 yards in an NFL football game.
Justin Forsett, by the way, looked like he was moving okay for the Detroit Lions yesterday against the Redskins. I don't know if maybe he didn't, put some sour milk in somebody's cornflakes somewhere over at the Under Armour Training Center, or
Right.
said something, hey, and maybe they just said, well, you're disrupting things. Get out of here.
Right. Well,
because he looks certainly like he can still play right now.
Right. Well, as we all know in football, it starts at the line of scrimmage, and the Ravens' offensive line is
Banged
woeful.
up. Yep.
Alex Lewis is a rookie who's just not ready for prime time. He should not be starting for an NFL football team at this point in his career. On the other side of the ball, they've been banged up, lost some key parts, and it just, again, the parts are not there. They've had to go to backups due to injuries, and these are backups that don't belong in NFL football games for the extended period of time that they are.
Just like when your alternator goes out in your car, if you go buy a reconditioned one and it doesn't work, you know what they are. You're out of luck. Redskins, meanwhile, they rally in the fourth quarter. Kirk Cousins looks terrific. They run the read option play, probably
into the
shocked
end zone.
everybody in the building. They take the lead with a minute 5 to go. It looks like they're going to win their 5th game in a row. And then Matt Stafford, who's having a great – and here's the thing, too. Jim Bob Cooter took over as the offensive coordinator for Detroit. Matt Stafford has looked tremendous ever since that move was made. He is getting the best out of Matt Stafford. Stafford made a couple of big-time throws in really what amounted to a 48-second drive.
Yeah.
They went 75 yards, 48 seconds, beat the Redskins 20-17, and he's a guy that's got one more year on his contract. He's only 28 years old. He's going to get one more big deal. And I wonder at some point now, do teams around the league start looking at Jim Bob Cooter as a potential head coaching candidate, because he's done a heck of a job here with Matt Stafford. The Redskins just losing bodies yesterday. I mean, Josh Norman goes out in the secondary. When you're losing your top guy, it's going to make it very difficult to stop Marvin Jones, Anquan Bolden, Golden Tate, who make a really nice triumvirate there in Detroit.
Well, and as one of the Redskins defensive backs says that he calls Matthew Stafford Brett Favre Jr. because he is a gunslinger.
Oh,
He's not afraid to push the ball downfield, try to throw it into tight windows. He likes that style of play, and he said that he'll take the interception if it happens, because that's what he's looking to make plays. And your defense though has to come up with a stop. You've got a minute left. You have the lead. You just get a defensive stop. Where's Ryan Kerrigan with the sack? Something to throw them off schedule, but instead the Lions just go right down the field, no problems whatsoever, bing, bang, boom. And that's a tough loss to swallow. The 4-game winning streak is over. And, as usual, when there's a loss in D.C., it'll be an entire week of radio talk show sniping and complaining and who's
Problem
at fault.
2 now for Washington. 2 of the 3 losses are in the NFC. There are 7 teams right now with 3 losses or less in the league. So you've got 2 NFC losses. You've lost a home game already to Dallas. If you don't catch the Cowboys and win the NFC East, winning as a wild card gets tougher with the math.
You're right.
Because you lose NFC games. And a team like the Cowboys or a team like the Lions are a potential team you could be in a tie with later down the road. So the math starts to work against you if you don't win.
All right, well, the
NFC
running
East.
game for the Redskins didn't show up again. It's just when you think that Matt Jones is going to really break out and be the man.
Chris Thompson ran well. He ran for 70 yards. Maybe they need to make him the full-time back, at least for knock on wood here. He doesn't put the ball on the ground like Matt Jones did at the goal line yesterday. That'll do it for our show this week. Don't forget, go to aacounty.org and look at the team schedules page to get your youth football playoff schedules with all the action starting this week. For Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. We'll see you next week for another edition of the Gridiron Review.